The life of Queen Elizabeth I is a tale not only rich in monarchy, politics and power, but also reflective of a woman's inner solitude, sorrow and silent sacrifices. She was a queen who ruled one of the world's most powerful empires for decades, yet harbored a void in her heart that nothing could fill. Her story begins at the golden gates of the royal palace and leads deep into the silent walls of her private chambers, where a lonely woman slowly faded away. Elizabeth I was born on September 7, 1533, in Greenwich, England. Her father, King Henry VIII, and her mother, Anne Boleyn, were prominent figures of the Tudor dynasty. Her birth was not a cause of celebration at the royal court, because the king desperately wanted a son. Consequently, her mother fell victim to palace conspiracies and was executed under charges of treason. Elizabeth was only 2.5 years old at the time. From a young age, Elizabeth was exposed to betrayal, power struggles, and the harsh realities of monarchy. Her father married several times, and she grew up under the shadows of various stepmothers, some affectionate, others indifferent. She proved to be exceptionally intelligent, mastering Latin, French, Italian, and Greek. She developed a deep understanding of politics, religion, and philosophy. As her half-siblings vied for power, Elizabeth too became a target. Her sister, Queen Mary I, a staunch Catholic, imprisoned Protestant Elizabeth under suspicion of plotting against the throne. She spent weeks in the Tower of London, an experience that left a lasting mark on her soul. In 1558, upon Mary's death, Elizabeth ascended to the throne. Her coronation marked a new era of hope, progress, and stability. She reduced religious conflicts, faced off against powerful Spain, and turned England into a strong and independent nation. Her reign is famously known as the Elizabethan era, a golden age of art, literature, music, and scientific advancement. This was the time of William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. Yet, behind the throne, her personal life was a series of sacrifices. She never married, bore no children, and lived her life as the Virgin Queen. Her closest companion was Robert Dudley, with whom she shared a deep bond. However, political risks prevented their relationship from becoming matrimonial. Some historians suggest that her parents' history and her mother's tragic end left her fearful of marriage. Others argue she chose the crown over companionship. Her greatest military triumph came in 1588, with the defeat of the Spanish Armada. This historic naval victory established England as a formidable maritime power. She maintained a delicate balance between Parliament, the court, and her advisors. Though she appeared stern and rational, she was a sensitive and thoughtful soul. Over time, Queen Elizabeth began to feel increasingly isolated. Her trusted friends and advisors passed away one by one. The younger generation of courtiers often disagreed with her decisions. Despite her growing frailty, she never revealed her weakness. Her health gradually declined. After 1602, she was rarely seen in public. Solitude became her constant companion. It is said she darkened the rooms of her palace and began to avoid mirrors, perhaps unable to accept her aging appearance. She refused to lie in bed and instead sat on cushions on the floor. Her doctors and attendants were puzzled by her condition. There was no clear physical illness, but her soul seemed wounded. She spoke very little and stopped eating. Perhaps time had worn her down, or maybe it was her heart. By 1603, her condition had worsened. Her eyes ached, her body weakened, and sorrow clouded her face. Her courtiers urged her to name a successor to avoid political uncertainty. She eventually accepted James VI of Scotland, her cousin, as her heir. On March 24, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I passed away in silence. With her death, the sun set on the Tudor dynasty. Her life was a complete chapter, filled with power, sacrifice, political brilliance, and quiet grief. After the death of Queen Elizabeth I, a profound silence spread across England's political and public spheres. The silence that had surrounded her in her final days now engulfed the nation. From the royal court to the town squares, there was one resounding statement: Queen Elizabeth is no more. After her death, her body was prepared for burial in accordance with royal customs and dressed in a simple white gown. Her face still bore the dignity and majesty that had defined her life. Preparations for her funeral continued for several days. Her funeral procession was a majestic affair, symbolizing the final performance of a glorious reign. Thousands joined the procession, nobles, advisors, servants, and commoners, all silently walking with her, as if united in the realization that an era had ended. She was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey, the same place where her father, Henry VIII, and her sister Mary were buried. Her tomb was adorned with a grand inscription detailing her achievements and wisdom. Today, her grave remains a site of interest for tourists and historians alike. Following her death, James VI of Scotland took over the English throne, marking the beginning of a united rule over both England and Scotland. This eventually led to the formation of Great Britain. However, in the hearts of the people, Elizabeth's memory lingered. In the years after her passing, English literature, poetry, and public memory were filled with tales of her greatness. Historians have examined her character from various perspectives. Some portray her as a harsh and authoritarian ruler, while others describe her as a wise and reformist monarch. But everyone agrees on one thing: she was an era unto herself. Her reign reshaped the perception of women in power, at a time when female leadership was rare and often undermined. Elizabeth demonstrated that intelligence, diplomacy, and strength were not limited by gender. She ruled not as a queen in a man's world, but as a monarch who commanded respect in her own right. Her personal life remains a subject of fascination. The reasons she never married, her close relationships, her psychological struggles, all continue to stir curiosity among scholars. But what emerges most clearly is her deep loneliness. She gave her life to the nation, but received in return a silent and solitary end. Elizabeth I gave England a renewed identity. She was not just a ruler, but a symbol of national pride. Her life and death teach us that despite achieving power, glory, and fame, a person's greatest longing may still be for a simple, peaceful life filled with love. The history of Queen Elizabeth I is not merely the story of a woman, but a chronicle of a nation's rise, fall, and revival. She is gone, but her memories, her impact, and her wisdom remain alive through the centuries.